My brother-in-law planned to sabotage my wedding with public lies, but I discovered everything. Exposed his cheating at his own ceremony, left him bankrupt, and kicked him out of my wedding. They never saw the revenge coming. I'm 24 years old. I work in digital marketing, and what happened with my now husband's brother almost ruined what should have been the happiest moment of my life. But in the end, well, let's just say things turned out better than anyone could have imagined. This story has everything: family drama, revenge, and an ending that still makes me smile when I think about it. So let me tell you everything from the beginning because it's absolutely crazy. I met Christopher about 6 years ago, when we were both in college. He was studying engineering and I was in my second year of communications, and we met at a coffee shop where he worked part-time to pay for his studies. He was super sweet, hardworking, and honestly one of the most genuine people I've ever met in my life. We started dating after a few months, and we've been together ever since, getting through all the typical stuff of a young relationship. You know, university stress, terrible jobs, tiny apartments, all that. Christopher was always incredibly thoughtful with me, and I knew a long time ago that I wanted to marry him. Like, I was sure he was the right person. Christopher's family was always a complicated topic. His parents are good people, really, but they have a giant problem, and that problem's name is Marcus. Marcus is Christopher's older brother. He's 27 years old, and he's basically been the golden child of the family forever. He was the jock in high school, the one who got good grades without trying too hard, the one who was always popular at family gatherings. You know what I mean? Christopher, on the other hand, was always quieter, more hardworking but less flashy, and his parents, without realizing, I guess, always compared everything Christopher did to what Marcus had already accomplished. It was exhausting to watch, but Christopher never complained much. He said that's just how things were and that was that. The problem with Marcus, and I knew this from very early in my relationship with Christopher, is that Marcus is a compulsive liar and a serial cheater. In the 6 years I've known that family, I've seen Marcus have like 4 serious girlfriends, and they all ended because he cheated on them. I'm talking about Amy, who discovered that Marcus had another girlfriend in another city; Becca, who caught him with super explicit messages with 3 different girls at the same time; Lisa, who found photos of Marcus with another woman on a trip that was supposedly for business; and Danielle, who basically caught him in bed with his coworker. All these girls were amazing, seriously, and they were all devastated after being with Marcus. But here's the most frustrating part. Christopher's parents always found a way to excuse Marcus. They'd say things like, "He's going through a difficult phase," or "He just needs to find the right girl," or my favorite, "We all make mistakes when we're young." Marcus was 25 years old when the Danielle thing happened. I mean, he wasn't exactly a confused teenager. Then everything changed about 2 years ago, when Marcus met Vanessa. He met her at a bar. According to him, although Christopher suspects, he probably met her while he was still with Danielle, but, well, that's pure speculation. Marcus introduced us to Vanessa at a family dinner, and from the first moment, from the first second I saw her, I knew she was going to be a problem. Vanessa is one of those people who smiles all the time, but her eyes are analyzing everything, judging everything, calculating everything. She's like 26 years old, works in sales of something. I never really figured out what exactly. And she has that superiority attitude that makes you want to run out of the room. At that first dinner, Vanessa made several super passive-aggressive comments about my clothes, about my job, about the fact that Christopher and I live together without being married yet. She said things like, "Oh, how interesting that you work from home. It must be very relaxing, not having to dress professionally every day," with that sweet little voice but clearly insulting. Or when she asked, "And when do you plan to formalize things?" Marcus and I believe in traditional values, you know? While looking meaningfully at my hand without a ring. Christopher squeezed my leg under the table because he knew I was about to say something not very nice to her. But I stayed quiet because, well, it was our first time meeting her and I didn't want to cause drama. Marcus and Vanessa became inseparable after that, and honestly, they seemed perfect for each other in the worst possible way. They were both manipulative, both superficial, and both clearly enjoyed feeling superior to others. Christopher's parents were delighted because finally, Marcus seemed to be settling down. And Vanessa came from a family with money, which apparently was a huge plus for them. Christopher and I just tried to keep our distance and be cordial when we had to see them at family events. Things got really tense when Christopher proposed to me about a year and a half ago. It was super romantic. He took me to the place where we had our first date. He had this beautiful speech prepared, and I obviously said yes because I love him and want to spend my life with him. We were super excited. We called our families that same night to tell them, and everyone seemed genuinely happy for us. Everyone except Marcus, who looked clearly annoyed, although he tried to hide it by saying, "Congratulations, bro. It was about time, wasn't it?" With that condescending little laugh he has. 2 weeks later, 2 weeks, Marcus proposed to Vanessa. And it wasn't a private, romantic proposal like ours. No. Marcus rented an elegant restaurant, invited like 50 people, including the whole family, hired a professional photographer, and basically turned his proposal into a media event. Vanessa, of course, said yes, and started planning her wedding immediately. And here comes the worst part. They announced that their in-place wedding would be 6 months before ours. They literally calculated the dates to make sure their wedding was first, and that it basically overshadowed ours in every way. The next few months were a nightmare of listening to Vanessa talk constantly about her wedding. Every family gathering turned into a session of Vanessa, showing photos of dresses, venues, flowers, everything. And always, she made comments about how her wedding was going to be really special and elegant and memorable, with little looks toward me like saying that ours wouldn't be. Christopher and I tried not to let it affect us. We were focused on our own wedding, that we wanted to be intimate and beautiful. But it was hard to ignore the constant competition that Vanessa seemed to be creating. Then something happened that changed everything. It was like 3 months before Marcus and Vanessa's wedding, and Christopher and I had gone to his parents' house for a family dinner. After eating, I needed to use the bathroom and went up to the second floor. The downstairs bathroom was occupied, and I knew the house well enough to know there was another one upstairs. When I was coming down the stairs after using the bathroom, I heard voices coming from one of the rooms. The door was slightly open, and I immediately recognized Marcus and Vanessa's voices. I had no intention of spying on them. Seriously. I was going to keep walking. But then I heard my name and I froze. Vanessa was saying something like, "I can't believe we're actually going to have to go to their pathetic wedding after ours." And Marcus laughed and said, "Well, at least we'll know exactly how to ruin it." I stood there, literally unable to move, while I listened to these two plan how they were going to sabotage my wedding. Vanessa was saying things like, "I already have everything planned. I'm going to plant drama among her bridesmaids before the ceremony. It's super easy. I just need to make a couple of comments about how Rachel told one that she didn't like the other. That kind of thing." Marcus added, "And I'm going to give a speech as best man." I have a bunch of embarrassing stories about Christopher from when we were kids prepared, stuff that's going to make him look like a total loser in front of all his friends and coworkers. I kept listening, my heart beating so loud I thought they were going to hear me. While these two monsters planned in detail how they were going to ruin the most important day of our lives. Vanessa mentioned that she was going to accidentally spill red wine on my dress during the cocktail hour. Marcus said he was going to invite some of his ex-girlfriends who never got over the breakup to create awkwardness. And Vanessa finished by saying, "It's going to be perfect. Their wedding is going to be a total disaster, and ours is going to look like the wedding of the year in comparison. Finally, Christopher is going to be seen as the loser. Brother he's always been." I went down the stairs as quietly as I could, went back to the living room where Christopher was with his parents, and had to pretend that everything was fine for the rest of the night. Christopher noticed something was wrong. He knows me too well, but I signaled him that we'd talk later. In the car ride home, I told him everything I had heard. Christopher went pale, then red with rage, then pale again. We were silent for several minutes until he said, "We can't let them get away with this, Rachel. We can't." And he was right. We couldn't. That night, lying in bed, unable to sleep, we started planning. At first, we thought about confronting them directly, but we knew Marcus would deny everything, and his parents would probably believe him like they always did. We thought about warning our wedding guests, but that would sound paranoid and dramatic. And then the idea came to me. If Marcus and Vanessa wanted to ruin our wedding, why not return the favor first? Christopher at first said no, that it would make us as bad as they were, but after talking for hours, after remembering all the times Marcus had hurt Christopher, all the times they had compared and belittled him, all the girls Marcus had emotionally destroyed, we came to the conclusion that Marcus and Vanessa deserved a little of their own medicine. I started by searching for Marcus's ex-girlfriends on social media, Amy, Becca, Lisa, and Danielle. They all had public profiles, and all of them, interestingly, had deleted all photos with Marcus after their respective breakups. I sent private messages to each one, explaining who I was, that I was engaged to Marcus's brother, and that I needed to talk to them about something important related to Marcus. Honestly, I didn't know if they were going to respond. I thought maybe they'd see me as crazy or just wouldn't want to relive bad memories. But to my surprise, all 4 responded in less than 24 hours. I talked to each one separately first. Amy told me that Marcus had told her he was on constant business trips, when in reality he was with another girlfriend in another city, and that she only discovered the truth when the other girl contacted her. Becca showed me screenshots of the messages she had found on Marcus's phone with multiple women, super graphic and romantic messages that he was sending at the same time he was telling her he loved her. Lisa explained to me that she had spent thousands of dollars on therapy after discovering that her entire 2-year relationship with Marcus had been a lie, that he had been seeing other women the whole time. And Danielle. Danielle practically cried during our phone call, telling me how she found Marcus in bed with his coworker in the apartment they shared, and how he had the nerve to tell her it was her fault for not being enough for him. I told them all what I had heard, Marcus and Vanessa's plans to ruin my wedding. I explained that Marcus was about to get married, and that he was probably going to do the same to Vanessa that he had done to all of them. Or worse, that Vanessa and he were going to become a couple of horrible people who would spend their lives hurting others. And then I proposed my plan. I wanted all of them to be present at Marcus's wedding, not as guests, but as surprises. I needed each one to write a letter detailing what Marcus had done to them, with dates, with evidence if they had it, and for them to be ready to stand up during the ceremony at the moment when the officiant said, "If anyone has any reason why these two should not be married, speak now or forever hold your peace." The reaction was immediate. Amy said, "Count me in. That bastard deserves this and more." Becca laughed and said, "Oh my God, yes. I've been waiting for an opportunity like this." Lisa said she needed to think about it because she didn't want more drama in her life. But 2 days later, she called me and said she was in because she felt she owed it to herself. Danielle was the most enthusiastic. She said she had been fantasizing about ruining Marcus's life since he left her homeless after kicking her out of his apartment, and that this was better than anything she had imagined. We spent the next few weeks coordinating everything. The girls wrote their letters. Christopher got the exact address of Marcus's wedding venue through the website they had created for the event. You know, those cheesy pages with a countdown and everything. We organized who was going to sit where, who would speak first, what evidence they would present. It was like planning a military operation. Seriously. Christopher was nervous the whole time. He kept asking if we were really going to do this, but I was determined. These two were going to learn that you can't just go through life hurting people without consequences. The day of Marcus and Vanessa's wedding arrived. It was a summer Saturday. It was hot, and the venue was ridiculously luxurious. Like, Vanessa had clearly spent a fortune on the decoration. Christopher and I arrived as normal guests. We dressed well, smiled, greeted the family. Christopher's parents were super excited. His mom was crying, saying how beautiful everything looked. I felt a little bad for them, honestly, but I reminded myself that this was necessary, that Marcus had had infinite opportunities to be a better person and never took them. Amy, Becca, Lisa, and Danielle arrived separately and sat in the back, among the general guests, where no one would recognize them immediately. We had given them instructions to blend in and act normal until the indicated moment. The ceremony began. Vanessa walked in with that dress that probably cost more than my car. Marcus was at the altar looking super confident and happy. The officiant did all the traditional part, the vows, the exchange of rings, and then the moment came. The officiant said in that serious voice they have, "If anyone has any reason why these two should not be joined in marriage, speak now or forever hold your peace." Amy stood up first. The silence that formed in that room was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Amy said in a loud, clear voice, "I have a reason." Marcus turned around and his face, oh my God. His face went from total confusion to recognition to absolute panic in a matter of seconds. Amy walked to the front and started reading her letter, explaining in detail how Marcus had maintained a double life with her for a whole year, even showing printed photos of them together with dates when Marcus was supposedly on business trips, according to his social media. Before Marcus could say anything, Becca stood up too. "I also have something to say," she announced. And she proceeded to read her letter about the multiple infidelities, showing printed screenshots of Marcus's messages with other women. People in the audience started murmuring. Some took out their phones. Christopher's mom looked confused and horrified. Vanessa was standing there at the altar, completely pale, looking at Marcus, like trying to process what was happening. Then Lisa stood up. And then Danielle. One by one, each of Marcus's ex-girlfriends stood up and shared their story of betrayal and manipulation. Danielle was the most brutal. She described in detail how she found Marcus in bed with another woman, how he kicked her out of her own apartment, how she had to move in with her parents at 25 years old because she couldn't afford her own place after trusting that they would live together. She showed text messages from Marcus saying horrible things to her, calling her things I'm not going to repeat here. The audience was in total shock. Some got up and left, others stayed as if hypnotized watching the drama unfold. Marcus was trying to speak, trying to say that everything was a lie, that these crazy women were obsessed with him, but his voice was lost among the growing murmur of the guests. Vanessa kept standing there, her bouquet trembling in her hands. The officiant didn't know what to do. They had never been taught in their training how to handle 4 ex-girlfriends showing up with documented evidence of infidelity. It was surreal. Honestly. Eventually, Vanessa yelled at Marcus, "Is this true?" And Marcus tried to take her arm, but she pulled away. The ex-girlfriends finished speaking and simply left, walked out of the venue with their heads held high, leaving behind absolute chaos. Christopher and I stayed seated, trying to keep neutral faces, but honestly, it was hard not to smile a little bit. Christopher's parents looked devastated, confused, betrayed. Other family members started getting up and leaving. Nobody knew if the wedding was going to continue or not. After like 10 minutes of Vanessa yelling at Marcus in front of everyone, of Marcus trying to explain and do damage control, Vanessa's dad came over and said something in his daughter's ear. Vanessa looked at Marcus one last time, with so much hatred it gave me chills, and then declared out loud, "The wedding continues." I know, it was crazy, but apparently her parents had spent so much money on everything that they decided to go ahead anyway. The ceremony was the most awkward thing I've ever seen in my life. The officiant rushed through the vows. Almost no one applauded when they were declared husband and wife, and the kiss was quick and clearly forced. The reception was even worse. Half the guests didn't go. Those who did spent the whole night whispering and looking at Marcus and Vanessa. No one danced. No one seemed to be having a good time. The speeches were super awkward with people trying to say nice things but clearly thinking about what they had just witnessed. Christopher and I stayed for an appropriate amount of time and then left, saying we weren't feeling well. In the car ride back, Christopher and I finally allowed ourselves to laugh. It was cathartic, after so much tension. We had done what we set out to do, and it had worked better than we had imagined. The following days were crazy. The story of Marcus's wedding spread like wildfire. Everyone who was there told someone who told someone else, and soon everyone in both families knew the complete details. Marcus and Vanessa apparently spent their honeymoon fighting, according to what Christopher's mom told us later. Marcus knew that someone had orchestrated everything. It wasn't a coincidence that all 4 ex-girlfriends showed up at the same time with prepared letters and organized evidence. He started calling Christopher, accusing him, leaving him voicemails, screaming that he knew it had been him, that he was going to make him pay. Christopher and I decided it was time to talk to his parents before Marcus invented his own version of events. We went to their house one afternoon and told them everything, from the beginning. We explained that we had overheard Marcus and Vanessa planning to sabotage our wedding. We told them about the specific plans they had, and we said that's why we had decided to act first. Christopher's mom cried, not because of what we had done, but because she finally understood who Marcus really was. Christopher's dad looked destroyed. He said he felt like a failure as a father for not having seen the signs before, for having allowed Marcus to hurt so many people. We told them we would understand if they were angry with us, but to our surprise, Christopher's mom hugged us and said Marcus had had this coming for a long time. She said they had been too permissive with him, that they had always excused his behavior, and that maybe this was what he needed to finally change. Christopher's dad added that although he didn't completely approve of our methods, he understood why we had done it and couldn't blame us for protecting our special day. We thought that was the end of it, that Marcus would go lick his wounds and that Vanessa would eventually leave him. But no. These two were so twisted that they decided to double down. About 2 months before our wedding, they started asking subtle questions about our guest list, about the venue, about the plans. Christopher suspected they were up to something, but we didn't know exactly what. Turns out Marcus had gotten our complete guest list. I don't know how. He probably blackmailed someone in the family or something, and he and Vanessa sent fake invitations to like 30 people who weren't originally invited to our wedding. The invitations said we had expanded the guest list and that we were delighted they could attend, and included all the correct information about the venue and date. We found out when a distant cousin of Christopher's called us thanking us for the invitation and saying she was surprised but happy to be included. Christopher immediately realized what had happened. Marcus and Vanessa were trying to ruin our wedding by filling it with people we hadn't invited, creating chaos with the seating arrangement, with the food, with everything. We acted fast. Christopher called everyone who had received the fake invitations and explained the situation, apologized profusely, and told them that unfortunately there had been a mistake and we couldn't accommodate them. Most understood, some got upset, but, well, there wasn't much we could do. Then we hired extra security for our wedding. We gave the security team photos of Marcus and Vanessa with specific instructions not to let them in under any circumstances. We also alerted the venue coordinator about the situation, so they would be prepared. Our wedding day arrived. It was a perfect autumn Sunday. Not too hot, clear sky, everything looked beautiful. We had chosen a smaller, more intimate venue than Marcus and Vanessa's, a gorgeous garden with an old house, nothing ostentatious but perfect for us. Guests started arriving early, all happy and excited. And then, according to what we were told later, Marcus and Vanessa showed up trying to get in. The security team stopped them at the entrance. Marcus apparently tried to explain that he was the groom's brother, that he was the best man, that he had every right to be there. Vanessa was yelling that they were going to sue, that this was discrimination, all those ridiculous things. But the security team was professional and firm. They told them they had specific instructions from the bride and groom not to allow them entry, and that if they didn't leave voluntarily, they would have to call the police. Marcus and Vanessa eventually left, furious, but they left. Our wedding was absolutely perfect. The ceremony was beautiful. I cried during the vows. Christopher cried. I think everyone cried a little bit. The reception was intimate and joyful, with everyone we love there celebrating with us. There was no drama. There were no unpleasant surprises. There was nothing but love and happiness. Christopher's parents were there. They had explicitly chosen not to tell Marcus about the final details of our wedding after everything that had happened, and they looked genuinely happy. For us, we danced, ate, laughed. It was everything we had dreamed of and more. Marcus and Vanessa's story, however, didn't end there. About 3 months after our wedding, we found out that Vanessa had discovered more of Marcus's lies. Apparently, Marcus never stopped seeing other women, even during his relationship with Vanessa, even after getting married. Vanessa discovered it in the most cliché way possible. She found messages on his phone with his assistant at work. The difference is that Vanessa wasn't like Marcus's previous ex-girlfriends. She had resources and was willing to use them. She hired a private investigator who documented all of Marcus's infidelities, obtained evidence of everything, and filed for divorce with a lawsuit for all the wedding expenses plus emotional damages. The divorce was a public spectacle. Vanessa didn't hold back. She posted everything on social media, shared evidence, humiliated Marcus at every opportunity she had. Marcus tried to fight the lawsuit, but eventually had to accept a settlement that basically left him bankrupt. He lost his apartment, had to move in with his parents. His reputation was completely destroyed. And you know what? I didn't feel even a little bit sorry for him. After years of hurting women, after trying to ruin my wedding, after a lifetime of being a terrible brother to Christopher, he was finally facing the consequences of his actions. Christopher and I now have a beautiful life together. We live in a small house we bought last year. We're both happy in our jobs. We're talking about having kids soon. Christopher's relationship with his parents is better than ever. They finally see clearly who each of their sons is. Marcus still lives with them, but their relationship is tense. He's no longer the golden child. He can't get away with everything anymore. Sometimes I wonder if we did the right thing by sabotaging Marcus's wedding. It was vindictive. It was calculated. It was probably more cruel than it should have been, but then I remember their plans to ruin us. I remember all the women he hurt without remorse. I remember how he treated Christopher for years, and I stopped questioning myself. Marcus needed to learn that actions have consequences, and if we didn't teach him that lesson, nobody would. Christopher says he feels free for the first time in his life, that he's no longer living in his brother's shadow, and that to me is worth all the drama we went through. Last week, I ran into Amy, one of Marcus's ex-girlfriends, at a coffee shop. We recognized each other immediately and sat down to talk for almost 2 hours. She told me that exposing Marcus at his wedding was one of the most liberating things she's done in her life, that she was finally able to close that chapter and move on. She's in a new healthy relationship now, and she looks genuinely happy. That made me feel good, knowing that we not only protected our wedding but maybe also helped those women heal a little bit. At the end of the day, I think this story isn't just about revenge or justice, but about standing up for yourself when someone tries to hurt you, about protecting what you love, and about finally putting a stop to people who think they're untouchable. Marcus probably will never change completely. That type of person rarely does, but at least now everyone knows who he really is. And Christopher and I, well, we're living our best life, surrounded by people who truly love us. No drama, no toxicity, just us building our future together. And that's more than enough.